Your mic has been muted the whole time. It's too late. It's too late. It's too late. It's too late. We got the audio. We got the audio record. I just saw it. Oh, wait a minute. You've been muted.
I'm not doing this again. I'm not trying this again.
Wait. Continue. I'm sorry. I just thought we'll do an audio only episode of this one. It doesn't come through right. We'll do audio only. We'll do audio only. Well, it's okay. It's okay. This is why we have backups, and it possibly because
I'll see y'all next week. I'm over it. I'm over it. Over it. It's been, from the jump. This jump has been difficult. We'll see y'all next week. From the jump, this thing has been difficult, and I'm so sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of it. I should just go back to audio because this is just getting out of hand now. I'm tired. I'm tired of digging holes, Grandpa. Okay.
Take two.
Welcome back to Exasperated. My name is Yasmin.
I'm Yvain.
And we're talking about all things books, all things media. And this time we are back talking about Tracy Deon's Legendborn. And so let's be honest, we just kept reading. We didn't just we have checkpoints, but we didn't stop.
We met the checkpoints.
We surpassed that
and
checkpoints.
proceeded to surpass that checkpoint.
So that just means Tracy Deon is doing her thing. This book is amazing. Like I said, the first time I read it, I just could not put it down. And again, it's a page turner. You just don't want to put it down. So many things is happening. So many secrets are being revealed. So many lives are being upheaved. And it's just like...
It's just one thing after the next,
yep.
after the next, after the next. And it makes for a very compelling read.
Yep.
But...
Whew.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I still haven't mastered the art of the lapel mic.
Yeah, to be honest, video is much harder.
It's much harder.
Audio was much easier. It was so simple, so easy. Doing video is much harder. Yeah. It is much harder.
Yeah, still here we are, still doing it.
Unfortunately, for some reason. For some reason.
But as we said last week again, because Bree is a young African-American woman traversing this POI space, traversing
PWI.
this POI is person of interest. Traversing this PWI. See now, she's traversing the space that is not inherently made for her. Mm-hmm. And again, as I said last week, because you are a person who went to a PWI school, mm-hmm. then I keep saying again, that's just how I talk. Again, I think it'll be very interesting to kind of sort of get your perspective, especially on some of, like we said last week, some of the microaggressions and mm-hmm. the things that really and truly, unless you were a African-American woman in this space, you wouldn't really pick up on. Mm-hmm. And I know we talked a lot about grief last week, but we see in these chapters between chapter 14 to 27 that, again, this grief that Bree is having over her mother, even though it is the driving force of her journey, it also is a thing that is like, it holds on to her. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think one of the characters that she ends up meeting, I do not remember the character's name, but it was a part of Rootcraft, which is a section of magic that her ancestors practice. Mm-hmm. And so one of the people who met her like shook her hand and was like, wow, death is well acquainted with you.
Yeah. And I was like
but to put a step on it.
Yeah.
I have here that says Bree often suppresses her emotions to stay focused on her goal. Mm-hmm. What does this say about the way people cope with loss?
I think for Bree, it's the only way to not get swallowed up. Mm. Have you ever been swallowed? It's a way that she's not overcome with grief. And she, like we talked about last week, she calls it before Bree and after Bree. And she literally has to imagine walls, locks, doors being shut, sealed, in order to suppress how heavy this grief is. And it is, the way that she is doing it is so unhealthy, because she needs to feel the grief and let those emotions be passed through her, and just when it comes, just let it happen. But suppressing it is just for further, well, in as far as I know, suppressing it, you can only suppress it for so long before it finds ways of seeping out. And we see that now, because when her guard is down, the emotions find a way, like water finding the most least resistant path to seep all the way out and almost overwhelm her and overcome her. But it is funny how she's dealing with the loss of her mom, and also dealing with this whole new society that she has plunged herself into, and that is triggering more emotions on top of that, because she has to lie to her dad, she has to lie to her best friend, and just the notion of being a part of this world that was not built for her, that basically deems her unworthy because she's Black. The whole institution, weaving her way in it to find out what really happened to her mom, is also paying an emotional toll. So the grief is present, and it is a driving force. But now she has, on top of this good grief, the racism, the microaggressions, the issues that come with being attached to Nick, and what she has now done to him, now that he's back in the world, that also causes her to be mournful in that sense as well. So it's not just like, I've lost my mom, but now I've plunged this person who I like. Let's not pretend she don't around it. Let's not dance around it. I plunged this person I like back into a world that he wanted to leave, and what repercussions that is going to take on him, and then eventually on me. So there's that about Tracy Deon, and I'm going to stop with gabbing, but Tracy Deon does a very beautiful job of penning the I don't want to say teeter-totter, but the emotional roller coaster of Bree's life, and now saying that, okay, Bree's grief is her own, but then everybody is being affected by her wanting to absolve herself of her mother's death. And so it's this emotional roller coaster. She's a teenager, she's 16, she's in this adult world of I want to say UC Berkeley. That's not where she is. UNC. At UNC, and she's trying to traverse her own life, trying to forge her own path. Trying to go through the whole early college experience as a 16-year-old amongst these adults. And then on top of that, she lost her mother 3 months ago. She doesn't want to feel what that feels like, because it's going to cause her to be in bed for days. But then in order to find out what happens to her mom, she has to go through this secret order, which is basically made out of people who are not of color. White people. In order to figure that out. And there's no guarantee that this is what actually happens, even though her mind is telling her, yeah, it was probably a Merlin who killed your mom, but there is no guarantee that this is what actually is happening. She falls in love, or is beginning to fall in love with this guy. And she realized, oh, crap-a-doodle-doo.
Oh, shoot.
I actually made this man come back into a world he was trying to leave for good reason. Now, on top of the grief, is guilt.
And guilt and grief are almost best friends.
They're almost best friends. They're twins.
They're twins. Like you can have guilt without grief. You can have grief without guilt. But it's something when guilt and grief like joins forces.
They're the Wonder Twins. They're the Wonder Twins. So it's a complicated, and I don't think I answered the question, but it's a complicated time for Bree, and her suppressing these emotions she's not processing grief. She's not processing the guilt that she feels. She's just blocking it away, saying that's a tomorrow problem or that's a never issue. And what that does is just allows it to be built up. Mm-hmm. And then eventually it will just seep on out or be broken down, and there will be no wall or seal or door that is going to stop the influx of emotions that will occur. Good luck to this girl.
I mean, it's almost akin to how when people experiencing grief, they throw themselves into their work.
Yeah.
Like the way that I see Bree is that she's almost, I wouldn't say she's keeping herself busy, mm-hmm. but it's like, okay, as long as she's doing this, as long as she has a goal, as long as it's, okay, this is what I'm focused on, my brain doesn't have time to go back and be like, I lost. Well, she doesn't say lost.
Yeah, my mom is gone. My mom is gone.
My mom is gone.
Yeah, it's the same. It's practically the same. And again, she's doing this because she's brand new to magic, and she figures that like she said before, if somebody else did this to my mom, then it is not my fault.
Not my fault.
But in reality, it's not her mom. It's not her mom having an argument did not cause her mom to have an accident and die. The two are not correlated. It just so happened at the same time. But the mind is such a powerful thing, mm-hmm. that it will have you believe that if I never got into this argument with my mother would still be here. If I never said I wanted to go to UNC. I want to say UC Berkeley so bad. If I never went to UNC, then my mother would still be here. If I never had said these words, then this and that and the other. If I had told my mom, hey mom, good morning, blah, 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 before she left for work, then this wouldn't have happened. It's like the brain finds a way to try to make it seem like, especially in this moment, it's 3 months, it's fresh. Like this could possibly be your fault. Which is why I get why she leaves, because then if she's blaming herself, then that's a totally different, and again, that's guilt and grief going hand in hand. That's a totally different feeling from what her father feels. So she's seeing her stuff, her mom everywhere, is not only making her want to grieve, but it's making her feel guilty because she thinks it's her fault, which we both know that accidents happen. A person who is not grieving, who is in their right mind, knows that this happens, but the two aren't correlated. And her suppressing it, like we said, is not helping, because then there are points in this book where she meets Patricia, who is her counselor, therapist.
I think so, yeah.
And Patricia has to literally coach her from having a panic attack. And so we can already see the emotion seeping out within Bree's body, like just physically, not just like, I can't believe my mom is gone, but the body is actually viscerally reacting to what she's trying to suppress. And it's not just like because of the news, that everything that's happening, but like now the body's like, if you're not going to do what you need to do in order to feel what you need to feel, I'm going to do it for you in the form of panic attacks, in which her therapist, which is really nice, a nice introduction of Black therapists in this book, helps her work through. So it's a whole lot going on here when it comes to emotions and suppressing emotions, but good luck to her, like I said before.
And it's funny because we see even her main love interest, Nick, has his own experience with his own mother, which again, I don't want to go into, even though it happens like in the middle of the book, but like we see that and we were kind of talking about it earlier, like trauma bonding,
Yeah.
even though I think some people say trauma bonding is not healthy.
Yeah.
But trauma bonding, like, okay, this happened to your mom, this happened to my mom. And we now knowing about what happened to Nick's mom, we understand now why he's helping Bree the way that he is.
Yeah.
Yes, because he likes her.
Yeah.
But also because he's like, you know what? If I remember correctly, and Bree does tell him the story of his mother, he now understands, I know what it's like to lose a mom potentially to these people.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I could see somewhere in Nick's brains where it's like, you know what? If I can help you get closure, I can help you get what I didn't get. Because I'm still dealing with the fact that, you know what? These people took my mother away from me.
Yeah.
And so we kind of sort of see this bond, and we see Bree end up bonding not just with Nick, but also with a lot of these other characters. Like we see her, yes, these characters are not African American, but we even start to see her find a little community in the Order, which, if you ask me, is what she needs, because the General Order does not like people like her.
No.
Like they
listen,
look.
It's built off of white folks. I'm sorry, white folks, but it's built off of white folks. And so the best part of this book, not the best part, but the part that goes, you're getting exactly what you get, because you done riled this girl up, you done poked the bear. And so when she comes to like slice your head off, don't be confused. It's with Vaughn.
Oh yeah.
With Vaughn.
Oh yeah.
And of course, I'm so sorry to these white folks, but when Vaughn says that we don't want that affirmative action
BS
in the Order, I was like, of course, white male. Of course you would open your mouth and say that to somebody who's black, not forgetting, but what society would have us believe is that affirmative action, before this whole thing blew up and people actually realized what affirmative action was for, it had us believing that affirmative action was only for people who look like us, not knowing that affirmative action also helped white women, helped Asian people, it helped a lot of other people who don't look like us. So when white man says, I don't want that affirmative action BS here, I go, your mother went to college, that was affirmative action. Like, it's not just for black people. Like, it's for the people who aren't you.
So here's my question, right? Here's my question.
God,
because we see Vaughn, we see the microaggressions, and yes, we have people like Sarah, which I had to verify, Sarah, who is half white, half Venezuelan, and she even goes in and says, like, you know what? When people make certain comments, probably about Venezuelan people, or does people of color in general, they don't realize that, hey, she's half Venezuelan, so those they're making comments about her as well. But the question I want to ask, right, is that how does Vaughn's ideology and the microaggressions and how like this order is built on bloodline and inheritance, and how like we see this in society, how does that reflect the real world ideas about privilege and power and exclusion? I know we don't have much time because I
think we're 16 minutes in.
We're 16 minutes in. My watch is about to die. I have like a minute 27 on, but let's talk about it for a minute, because last week's episode was 30 minutes anyway. so let's talk about it. How does the way Tracy Deon presents these ideologies through these characters, both for better and for worse, reflect on this idea of privilege and power and things that come from, as you said, bloodlines that is not like us. Yeah. In the words of Kendrick Lamar, like they are quite literally not like us. Like,
again, kudos to Tracy Deon, because she really digs deep without. No, let me not say without. She just digs deep. She's like, there ain't no without nothing. She really just throws it in your face and goes, take with it what you will. like it, don't like it. This is what people go through who are a minority in these types of spaces. And so when we talk about Vaughn Twang,
he get. I'm not going to lie. he gets what he deserves. He kind of sort of turns a little bit at the end, turns around, but continue. But I'm not sticking up for him. I'm just saying, like, he gets what he deserves.
When we talk about Vaughn's blatant, and again, this is I prefer it this way, racism to your face instead of microaggressions, because when you call it out, no one can go, oh, I was just
playing.
No, you were plain old being what Bree says, a bigot. And she says, she tells him off in a very beautiful, eloquently strong, and informative way to let her know, I will not be trifled with, I will not be messed with, and you do not scare me. But when we talk about like the characters like Vaughn, and not just in this book, but in other books where people of color encounter racist, closed-minded, bigoted individuals, there are characters like Vaughn. Yeah. And characters like Vaughn exist in real life. And we are seeing that every day. Every single day. And so we have to, when we talk about inheritance and bloodline and power, Tracy Deon does a very beautiful job in letting us know that the people who are not like us can trace their bloodline. They can trace it back to the beginning of time if they wanted to. But for those of us who went through the Middle Passage, our ancestors went through the Middle Passage and was brought over here on false beliefs, we don't have that privilege. And so there is this sense of superiority that those who can trace feel over those who cannot. And there is this sense of power for those who can trace and those who cannot. Because when we're talking about generations, if you can't trace where they come from, how are you going to build generational wealth? That's true. Like, you can't build generational wealth if you don't know where you're coming from. It's the thing with the order is that through these bloodlines, they were able to not just pass down power, as in like you are the line of Gawain, so you get at some point, if ever the end is near, if you're called, then the power of Gawain will come upon you, if I am putting in my Christian term. You will be Gawain Scion. You'll be Gawain reincarnated for this time. But not only did it come with that, but it came with prestige. Yeah. It came with what everybody wants, money. It came with dough, because then you're able to fund the next generation. You're able to say, okay, let's be for real. Y'all started off as plantation workers. You started off in England, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. Transition to the US. Plantation workers. Emancipation happens. You still have that money that you made from being a plantation worker. Now you get to invest it in something else. And then you get to invest that in something else. Mm-hmm. And then you get to invest this in something else. So by the time it gets to Vaughn is part of old money that is coming from Weiwo. You know what I'm saying? Whereas Bree or you and I, we don't have Weiwo money. We got today money. We got right now money. And again, this whole point of generational wealth is that we just have right now money, but they have back then money. So Vaughn can go to the best schools. Vaughn can take that time. Vaughn doesn't have to go to public school. Vaughn can go to private school and or be homeschooled, because his parents technically might not even have to work. Or if his parents are working, they are CEOs. Or they're working at this big corporate job where they can pay for Vaughn to go to private school, or they could pay for Vaughn to go to homeschool
or
private tutors for them to come to his house. So he does half a day learn what he needs to learn in order for him to go to college. And then the other half, he gets to practice how to fight. He gets to practice his skills. So there is that the wealth disparity also brings about skill disparity.
Yeah.
And so whereas Bree is just figuring out this whole magic thing now, Vaughn has had years,
almost since he came out the
womb, to practice this thing. So when we talk about power and wealth, it's not just okay, you can afford to do this because monetary wise you can afford it, but you also have the time to do this because monetary wise you can afford it. Like that's just like, to be honest, if we could afford to do certain things, we would do it. And if we could afford to not work 2 days a week, 3 days a week, and travel more, we would do it.
Yeah.
If we were parents and we could afford to send our kids to private school or homeschool our kids so that they learn this, and then say, hey, you're learning about Peru, let's go to Peru. We would do it. But because we can't afford that life, we have to send our kids to public school, or we sacrifice certain other things to send our kid to a private school for better education. And that's a whole nother conversation that gets me heated every time when I talk about public schools and it using, not just taxpayers' money, but public, property taxes in order to fund schools. I think that's a load of crap, but that's not. That's a whole other conversation, because I think it's a load of crap, because people who live in certain areas have better schools and better systems and better education than people who live in other areas. And you have to fight, if you live in this area, to get the same education and to get the same opportunities than people who live in this area. It's a load of crap. So when you get to college and you're wondering, well, wasn't able to take AP Music, that's because you lived in this area that could not fund AP Music. If you lived down the street, like in Lakeside, you could afford AP. You could have went to somewhere.
Not calling out real life locations.
I'm just saying, okay, this school doesn't have a robust music program. You can't do theater. You can't do this. You can't do that because they can't afford it. You go to this school, you can't afford it. You have to get into another special school that does this stuff. That doesn't make any sense. But if you go to Chambly can afford it because Chambly is in an area where the property taxes are different. Yeah. That's just that I think is dumb. If you want all of our kids to be smart, then find another way to fund schools. But again, that's another issue for it. And that just goes back to the whole wealth and disparity and what happens when you have this multi-generational wealth that's be able to pass down since King Arthur was a boy. You can afford to live in certain places. You can afford to go to certain schools because then really and truly your ancestors was able to invest and reproduce and invest and reproduce and invest and reproduce in certain things that you and I have never even heard of until this day.
But the funny thing is that even inside of the order, of course we know that there is hierarchy. But when I say there is hierarchy, it's like, okay, the higher up you are on the line, the more prestige you have. And so I can imagine parents who they may not be able to trace their lineage back to Arthur and the Knights of the Round, but yet still their children can compete in this tournament and go from being a page to a squire to page to a squire. I could imagine parents be like, okay, you have to try to become the Arthur of Scion.
Yeah, you have to. You can't be the Scion of Arthur. You got to become the squire.
Sorry, you have to
become Arthur Squire.
Apologies, Tracy Deon. It's not on you. It's on me. It's a whole lot of confusion over here, but it's not on you because the way you pen it is not confusing for anybody else.
Our brain. You
have to try to become the squire of Arthur, or the squire of Lancelot, or like, okay, yes, if you become a squire of the 12th member of the table, then there is some prestige there. But the higher up you go, the more prestige you have, the more comfortable you and your family and your family's family, your generational down the line is going to be. Because guess what? In my head, and I don't know if she touches she touches this in the book. In my head, once you become a squire of a certain line, if you could keep that going, then you have a higher chance. Then your children have a higher chance of being the squire of that same line.
But let's be clear. These people who are vying for squireship, that's not a word. This order is so old that this is all circling around the same darn people. There a lot of if I'm remembering correctly, the pages that are brought into the order are from prestigious families that probably can trace their roots to somewhere in Wales, wherever Arthur's from.
I think they said there's different places, but in this book she says that Wales is the place. Is the start of it.
They could probably trace their roots somewhere in Wales or Scotland or England or somewhere.
It's too late. We got the audio. We got the audio report. I just saw it. Oh, wait a minute. You've been muted.
Like I was saying, these are all the same players that are revolving around history. So it's to be honest, because they're supposed to bring in a page from a prestigious family that they know. So obviously, these players are still there. They've just been circulating throughout history. This is not an order where it's welcoming outsiders. So for Sarah being half Venezuelan, that is surprise, you And when they see Bree be brought in, they're like, yeah, no, this is not the group for that. This is not the group for that. And so it's all about, man, at the end of the day, the very big difference between, and we are not even talking about Rootcraft. The very big difference between Rootcraft and Bloodcraft is that they idolize their ancestors, and Rootcraft honors.
I like that you said that. Yeah.
It's very different. It is the two are not the same. It is very different. And so, the more that we read and uncover about what is Rootcraft and how Bree is attached to Rootcraft, because she gets to walk back into Patricia's, who's her therapist's, ancestors' memories, but the memories say, "Oops, I see you," and drags her, like literally drags her across time in order for her to uncover what is really happening on campus. And actually, just not just on campus, but throughout this whole order.
And the way the order, because we see that the order has shaped history.
Yeah.
And the way that the way how the order has been shaping history, and is almost like, well, let me say this: the way how the order shapes their version of history. Because I think it's either Patricia who says it or Bree who thinks it. So is that there's always two versions of history, especially in the South.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think Tracy Deon wrote that. I think she wrote it. That there are two, and it's so funny that.
Sorry, I just wanted to.
No, you're fine. It's so funny that these Rootcrafters are aware of the Legendborn, who they call Bloodcrafters, but not once until they mention the line of Morgaine now, who they said they broke off and they're no longer powerful, they're wicked, there's nowhere else where they mention there is another set of people, and I guess because Bree is using the Legendborn language amongst around Patricia, that she's like, yeah, we know those folks. We know who they are. But there is no mention that there's other people on campus who aren't part of Legendborn, who aren't part of the order, who uses magic. And so I find it real funny that these two the magic usage of magic are being woven and paralleling and crossing across time. But Bree, we don't hear mention of any mixed children in this.
Mm-mm.
There is no half black, half white kid, and that's a question. It's a question now on, is it because they're aware that those who use brute magic are aware of these blood casters and says absolutely not, and these Legendborn are aware of these brute casters and say we don't want to mix the magic? Or is it just intentional crisscrossing but never weaving in and out of history but never actually intersecting? That's the question. And also, when Patricia calls it blood craft, I go, so somebody owes a debt. Or if it's not Patricia, it's
Patricia.
If somebody owes a debt and they didn't pay, and the line is paying for the debt that they're supposed to pay. Because anytime we encounter magic and blood magic is used, there is always a price to pay. So my next question is, who forgot to pay the lady?
But I think the thing is that, and okay, if we're gonna continue this, I think the thing is that the fact of, because they talk about abatement, if I said that right, and I truly and really believe abatement is one of the ways that they're paying the price for this.
I think so too.
Because I don't think it's who forgot to pay the lady. I think it's that the lady is collecting her check with every line.
Yeah.
Because with abatement, if I remember correctly, once you are called, and if you are a squire, once you are bonded to your scion, your life is capped.
Yeah.
You do not live past 35.
Which is crazy.
Because if we think about it and look at it, 35 realistically is life is still just beginning for you.
But here's the thing. Here's a part where historically, where they could say 35 as being a nice cap, because people were having kids young.
That's true.
So by the time you're 35, you might have a 15-year-old. You might have a 16-year-old, because then you're starting off in your teens having children. For women. Men were a little bit older. But for women, you were having 8 by 18, 19. You were probably having like a child by that time. So wherever the curse started, 35 is a beautiful cap, because then at that point you're having children. But now you've already had kids. You're not starting to have kids. But in this day and age, 35, you might just have a cat. You might not have no kid to pass that line on. So for now it's like 35 is diabolical business.
Which makes me beg the question, because they say that, okay, abatement is not common knowledge. So I assume it's after they become a squire that they say, hey, so unfortunately, get your affairs in order,
right?
Because you're not making it past 35. So I wonder if that is why the order, they say power awakens when they're 16, right? So I wonder if that is why, if we were looking at this from in world perspective, if there may be a push within the order to get married and have kids young.
I don't know.
I wonder that.
I wonder, but the thing is though, they're not expecting. Okay, Calam.
The end of the world.
The end of the world happened once,
and that was with the revolution. No, that was the last time Arthur was called.
Yeah, the last time Arthur was called was with the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, if I remember correctly.
That's what, 1776.
1775. Yeah, it's 5, 6.
I'm trying to figure it out.
I think it's 1775.
1770s?
Yeah, let's call it.
I'm trying to recall my Hamilton knowledge, because he most definitely said it a lot in Hamilton. So, and this is what, 2020 something?
Roughly.
That's how much
in the 2020s.
That's how much years later. They're not expecting the end. They're not. So people is living past 35.
That's right. But no, but But the thing is, though,
the lowers, they always say the lower numbers are being called, but it's never, and that's another thing about prestige, another thing about lineage and power. Because if you're number 12 of the round table, you get called. That's just unfortunate for you. But author and those who are at the top, 6 and above,
that's what Nick said. Like, it's been forever since 6 and above
is being called. They don't have they can have kids whenever they want. It's probably those who are the 7 to 12 who was like, hey, figure it out. Figure it out now.
So that's why because
30 seconds.
Gosh, and this is why I say, like, we have to at some point just have like an hour-long episode, because it's so much to unpack. So that's why I wonder if that's why if they're in the lower numbers, there's this push of like, okay, it's not necessarily arranged marriage, but from young you already know who you're going to be with.
I don't know,
because if we're pulling from the same, and William goes on to explain that, okay, relationships between Page and Scion and Squire, the different relationship trees and what works and what doesn't work, and he explained it very eloquently that I could not replicate. But like, I wonder if for the lower numbers, again, not necessarily arranged marriage, but this thing of like, okay, you can be called when you get 16, you could be called any day. Mm-hmm. So bringing in somebody from the surrounding families who is connected to them. Mm-hmm. Okay, they have a young child. You are a young child. You two are basically going to get married in the future. Mm-hmm. So that way, when they get called by 20 something, they have a kid. Yeah. So when they drop at 35, it's like, okay, the line's not dead. Even though we know that later on in the book it's revealed that bleed. But I'm not gonna spoil it for y'all. Like, I caught myself.
Not you beating your own self. 10 seconds. Wrap this up.
But some stuff are revealed. But I wonder for this main line again, if that is the case, because again, it's all about power. And I know we say this in certain contexts, but in this context, keeping power within the line.
But it's not, again. Yes, it's all about power, but it's about lineage.
Keeping a lineage within a certain...
it's about power, but it's also about lineage. Because if, say, I don't know who the number 12th person is. Like, I'm not that deep in Arthurian legend. But say number 12 gets called and they don't have any kids. There is another number 12 somewhere, right? But for power's sake, to say that, hey, we are part of the original 12, you need to have a child so that this line continues in this family. There aren't just one line of author, if I'm remembering correctly. There are multiple kids who could be of author's line, but this book is dealing with this line of author. There aren't just one kid of Gwaine. There are multiple children who are the line of Gwaine that could be called. But at this point, it's about making sure that if anything were to occur, and I want to say that's true. I want to say that there's multiple children of line of Gwaine, but that might not be true.
If not,
then sorry, y'all, because I took it a whole different way. But it's about lineage. You need to number 12 has to have a kid before 35 because he's getting called all the time.
Because
number 12, 11, and 10, they gotta have children. They gotta have children before 35 because them's gonna die. They just gonna die at 35, and that's just what it is. But it's about keeping the power, keeping the lineage within this line, and not letting it escape to wherever else it could be. So when we talk about power and prestige and lineage, and it is basically that, and that's why Vaughn is the way he is, because he feels privileged. He knows he's privileged, and that's a whole other conversation. But when you know you're privileged, you act a certain way, especially when you're this privileged. And you feel and you think and you were ingrained that you're better than people who are
lesser.
Not this.
Lesser. I mean, not lesser as in they are physically lesser, but in your eyes they are lesser.
You feel as though anything that people who are this do are in competition or in thing with this, and which is not necessarily true. You have every leg up at every angle. The fact that I can even compete on your level is not because I've had people bolster me, but it's not because I had the resources that you have. Not in Bree's case. I have the resources that you have. I have the backing that you have. I'm able to compete because somebody said, hey, this is who I want. And I begged them and I almost held a gun to their head and say, hey, you gotta figure this out. We have to figure this out because I'm about to destroy your whole world if you don't. I'm just gonna do it myself. And instead of letting her do it herself, he's like, I'll help you. But that's the main reason why I'm able to compete on this level. Not because I knew, but because somebody brought me in.
And I think it's funny that I think at the core, especially of this, and kind of bouncing off of you, is like, again, if I could change it, the reason why I'm here is not because of affirmative action.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm here is not because my skin color gave me a free pass to attend this,
exactly,
or to be a part of this.
Exactly.
I'm here because, in Bree's case, Nick pulled her in. But if we were to look at a real life case, I'm here because I put in the work.
Yep.
My skills, my talent, the people who believed in me,
yep.
they may not have had financially believed in me, but they supported me. Mm-hmm. They made sacrifices. Yep. They made sure that, you know what, I was able to afford the cheerleading gear, or the martial arts gear. Yep. Or, you know what, instead of going on that trip that they had planned on, they took that money so I could go to wherever and be in a competition.
Yeah.
Like, the people who have sacrificed and the sacrifices I have made myself to get here is what brought me here.
Yep.
Not because the school needed, and yes, we understand affirmative action, but not because the school needed to fill a back percent quota.
Because if I didn't, and this is the conversation that people are missing, right? If I didn't have the chops to go to Harvard,
I wouldn't be here.
I wouldn't have even be admitted. It doesn't matter.
They would have looked at my application and laughed.
It doesn't matter. Like, affirmative action just says you need a certain number of people to get a certain amount of money from the government. That does not mean that I get to occupy that chair. If I'm using Harvard, for example, because I'm Black. That's not what that means. If I have a 1.0 GPA, Harvard is not accepting me. Not even if I beg them. Not because I'm Black. No, I worked my behind off. I got where I needed to get. It just so happens that because they need a certain amount of tax cut from the government, mm-hmm. that they needed to allow a certain number of people who may have looked like me, who might have been women, who are Asian, who are X, Y, and Z, in order to expand the diversity pool in that area. But it didn't mean I didn't work for this. Matter of fact, the application fee alone I had to work for it. And then if I'm here, it's not like grad school. You don't have to pay to say, yes, I'm going. I paid my down payment. Mm-hmm. I did what I had to do. And so it's funny where Vaughn is like, this is affirmative action at its worst. You know what I'm saying? Action, like just like with the Super Bowl, where a lot of people were like, this is DEI at its finest. And I said, that's because you didn't understand what was being said, because your eyes were closed and your mind was off. Same thing with the plane that crashed. Oh, it's DEI's fault. No. How about there was something wrong with the plane or something wrong with whatever was happening? And it's not because there was somebody of color behind the wheel. It's not because there's of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like, please stop lying to the people and feeding the public with your rhetoric. That's not what happened. What really happened is
XYZ ABC.
What really happened at the Super Bowl is Kendrick Lamar went and did what he had to do and sent the message, and everybody who understood, and those who didn't was like, I don't get it. That's what happened.
because I'm not trying to get in trouble with white TikTok. I don't want to. I don't because I have my.
But that's another conversation for another day. Like, so we gotta wrap this up.
It's been like 40 minutes. I love this world of Legendborn.
Yeah.
I love the Rootcraft. I love the Arthurian legend, and it makes me question that those of you who finished Bloodmark and Oathbound, don't say nothing because I haven't gotten there yet. I haven't finished Bloodmark. I don't even have the Oathbound book.
I don't even have the Oathbound book.
I wonder if there is other people outside of Rootcraft and outside of Legendborn who is using magic, who could potentially show up in the middle and the end of these two books.
That's a good question.
Because we only know the mere fact that Rootcraft exists means that there are other forms of magic.
Yeah.
But the Legendborns class, they say it, the Legendborns and the Regents and stuff like that do not like encountering people who use magic outside of the order. So I wonder if there is more magic out there than Rootcraft, if there's another branch of magic out there that we don't even, that me and you don't even know because we didn't finish Bloodmark or Oathbound.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that is the case, how that continues to play into the fact that the order really and truly is what it is, that yes, you have some people in there who are open-minded, but really and truly is closed.
Yeah.
Because in my eyes, and like I said, don't come for me because I'm not the 1, the 2, nor the 3. But in my eyes, if they really wanted, I understand authority, I understand the legend and lineage and prestige, and I understand all that. But if they really wanted to protect humanity, then they would have worked alongside with, they wouldn't be hunting that, or they come across a Rootcrafter and they capture them to figure out how the magic works, or anybody else. If they really wanted to protect humanity, they would be working alongside these people in spite of their differences. But yet still, here we see them like, okay, if you're not in the order, using magic is bad. But Rootcraft says something completely different.
But you know what though?
Yeah, but you know what though? I'm leaving it there.
My 2 cents is Kalam is a white people problem.
See y'all next week. See y'all next week. I'm gonna get out of here.
That's a nut problem. I'll see y'all next week.